Giorgio Armani's death at 91 doesn't just mark the passing of a man, it feels like the end of an era. For decades, he wasn't just a designer. He was the architect of modern elegance. He was the reason power suits became a global symbol of authority, the man who dressed Hollywood royalty, and the quiet visionary who built one of the most enduring empires in fashion. But Armani's story wasn't a straight line to success. He never planned to be a designer. In fact, his first career path had nothing to do with fashion at all. And behind the glamour, Armani's journey was marked by sacrifice, secrecy, and whispers that followed him right until the very end. So how did a shy boy from a small Italian town transform into one of the most powerful figures in fashion? And what hidden struggles did he face while building an empire that outlived almost every rival? Let's start at the very beginning, long before the world knew his name. Giorgio Armani was born in 1934 in Piacenza, a quiet town in northern Italy. His family lived modestly, far from the world of luxury he would one day define. As a boy, he never dreamed of runways or red carpets. Instead, he set his sights on medicine. Armani studied to become a doctor, spending 3 years at university immersed in anatomy textbooks and hospital rotations. But life had other plans. After his required 2 years of military service, Armani walked away from medicine entirely. The future designer admitted later that he realized he didn't have the stomach for life and death decisions. It was a turning point, one of many that would shape his future. With no clear path ahead, Armani took a job at a Milan department store, working as a window dresser. It may have seemed like a small, ordinary role, but it gave him his first taste of how clothes could tell a story. From arranging mannequins to selecting fabrics, he discovered the quiet power of presentation. Soon after, he rose through the ranks to become a buyer, a role that exposed him to international designers, fabrics, and silhouettes. Without realizing it, Armani was building the foundation of the empire he would later create. But the world of retail was only the first chapter. The next step would plunge him directly into the heart of fashion design itself. By the mid-1960s, Armani was no longer just observing fashion. He was shaping it. He landed a job with Nino Cerruti, one of Italy's respected menswear designers, and it was here that Armani began honing his craft. He learned how fabrics moved, how tailoring could alter not just a man's look, but his confidence. Still, Armani wasn't content with following someone else's vision. In 1975, alongside his partner, both in business and in life, Sergio Gagliotti, Armani launched his own label. The timing couldn't have been better. The world was tired of stiff, structured suits that weighed men down like armor. Armani's designs did the opposite. They freed men. His suits were softer, lighter, cut with fluid lines that draped naturally across the body. It was a revolution disguised as simplicity. Armani stripped away excess, and in doing so, he created a new standard of elegance. What began as a modest operation quickly grew into an empire. Within a few short years, Armani wasn't just another Italian designer. He was a force the entire fashion industry had to reckon with. But Armani's rise wasn't only about what he created in the studio. It was about how those creations collided with pop culture at just the right moment and turned his name into a global phenomenon. Armani's designs weren't just clothing, they became a cultural language, and America was the country that translated it best. In 1980, Richard Gere stepped onto the screen in American Gigolo, draped in Armani from head to toe. The sleek suits, the effortless sophistication, it was the perfect marriage of Hollywood glamour and Armani's minimalist vision. Practically overnight, the brand exploded into the American mainstream. Then came Miami Vice. Don Johnson's pastel suits with t-shirts underneath redefined what it meant to dress with power. Suddenly, Armani wasn't just for Wall Street executives. It was for anyone who wanted to look modern, stylish, and unapologetically confident. By the mid-80s, Armani wasn't just a name. It was the status symbol. To own an Armani suit was to announce that you had arrived. But Armani's influence didn't stop at boardrooms and TV screens. Soon, his designs began conquering the red carpet itself, reshaping how Hollywood's elite presented themselves to the world. For all the glamour Armani projected to the world, his private life was far more complicated. His closest companion and business partner, Sergio Gagliotti, wasn't just part of the Armani brand, he was at the very heart of it. Together, they built the foundation of the empire, with Sergio managing the business side while Giorgio focused on design. But tragedy struck in 1985 when Gagliotti passed away at just 40 years old. Reports at the time spoke of Armani being devastated, retreating further into his work as a way to cope. Insiders have said that Armani's relentless perfectionism, his near-obsessive focus on detail, only grew sharper after Gagliotti's death. The designer himself admitted in later interviews that he sacrificed much of his personal life for the sake of his brand. Relationships slipped away, and the demands of building a global empire left little room for intimacy. Success like this requires total commitment, Armani once said. It was a philosophy that made him legendary, but also left him isolated. And yet, Armani never presented himself as broken. Instead, he doubled down, channeling loss into discipline and discipline into timeless design. That very discipline would carry him into the next phase of his career, dressing not just powerful businessmen, but the most famous women in the world. By the late 80s, Armani wasn't just defining how businessmen dressed, he was rewriting the rules of Hollywood glamour. The red carpet, once a parade of traditional gowns and predictable tuxedos, suddenly had a new language: Armani. In 1990, Julia Roberts walked into the Golden Globes wearing a sharp, oversized Armani suit straight off the rack. It was unexpected, bold, and instantly iconic. She told InStyle years later, "I loved the shape of it. For me, this was the epitome of being dressed up." Roberts wasn't just wearing Armani, she was channeling his philosophy of elegance without excess. From that moment on, Armani became the go-to designer for A-listers. Kate Blanchett, Rihanna, and Hathaway each embraced his ability to blur the line between masculine and feminine, modern and timeless. And in 2010, Lady Gaga partnered with Armani for the Grammy Awards, where he designed a series of avant-garde looks that matched her outrageous performances. Gaga later said, "The pieces Mr. Armani created for me are truly iconic. They represent not only beautiful fashion, but my spirit and essence as an artist." Even beyond the red carpet, Armani's name became woven into life's most personal milestones. Katie Holmes walked down the aisle in an Armani gown. Princess Charlene of Monaco wore his custom creation for her royal wedding, a gown Armani described as a completely modern look, without any obvious sense of nostalgia or revivalism. At this point, Armani wasn't just a designer. He was a storyteller, dressing moments that would be remembered for decades. But with all the fame, success, and influence, whispers began to emerge about his guarded personal life, his perfectionism, and the rivalries that followed him in the cutthroat world of fashion. For all his discipline and polish, Giorgio Armani was a man who kept his personal life behind a carefully drawn curtain. And whenever a figure that powerful keeps quiet, the rumors inevitably start to swirl. Whispers followed him for years about his relationships, his fiercely guarded privacy, and the sacrifices he made in silence. Some reports suggested Armani was intensely private about his romantic life, a secrecy that only fueled more speculation. Others claimed his perfectionist streak could be intimidating, with stories of him demanding absolute control over every detail, from a fabrics cut to the lighting of his fashion shows. Within the fashion industry, Armani was respected, but not without rivals. Critics often speculated that he looked down on trend-chasing designers, sparking quiet feuds. He himself admitted he never cared about being trendy, famously saying, "I just don't care." For younger designers, that detachment could come across as dismissive, even arrogant. And then there was the speculation about his health. In 2024, Armani missed Milan Fashion Week for the first time in half a century. The official statement cited recovery from an undisclosed condition, but fans and insiders quickly wondered if his health struggles were more serious than the brand was letting on. That absence only grew louder in hindsight, with many now seeing it as the first public sign that his era was drawing to a close. Still, no rumor or speculation ever toppled Armani's reputation. If anything, the aura of mystery only reinforced his image as a legend, someone untouchable, larger than life, and unwilling to bow to anyone else's narrative. But behind the speculation was a truth Armani himself openly embraced. His empire wasn't built on trends or gossip. It was built on discipline, vision, and a refusal to compromise. And that philosophy is exactly what cemented his legacy. At the core of Giorgio Armani's empire was a philosophy that never wavered. He didn't chase trends, and he didn't bend to the fleeting whims of fashion. Instead, he built an aesthetic that was timeless, clean lines, neutral tones, and elegance stripped down to its essence. "I have never been interested in being trendy for the sake of it," he once said. "I have my own vision and ideas and am not afraid to go countercurrent." This approach gave his designs a power few others could match. While other labels rose and fell with every new wave, Armani remained steady. His suits became shorthand for authority and confidence. His gowns embodied understated glamour. And his brand evolved into a complete lifestyle, spanning couture with Armani Privé, contemporary wear with Emporio Armani, street style with Armani Exchange, and even hotels and home collections. But Armani often reminded the world that his success wasn't only about creativity. 80% of what I do is discipline, he told one interviewer. That relentless discipline made his empire one of the most stable in the industry, even as competitors collapsed under pressure. Perhaps most telling was his view of fashion's role in everyday life. "If you make clothes that are not part of the world we live in, they will be meaningless," he said. For Armani, fashion wasn't just about looking beautiful, it was about relevance, functionality, and purpose. That vision explains why Armani outlasted nearly every rival from his generation. He refused to be distracted by fads, and he never let success pull him away from his signature style. To Armani, discipline wasn't a restriction, it was freedom. And it became the reason his empire endured for nearly 5 decades. But even legends can't escape time. And when the end finally came, Armani faced it in the same way he lived, with quiet strength, surrounded by the empire he had built. On September 4th, 2025, the world learned that Giorgio Armani had passed away at the age of 91. The official statement said he died peacefully, surrounded by his loved ones. Even in his final days, he had been working, reviewing collections, approving designs, still guiding the empire he created with the same discipline that defined his life. His employees and family issued a heartfelt statement, describing the company as a family itself, one built on Armani's vision, passion, and dedication. They vowed to protect what he built, to carry it forward with respect, responsibility, and love. In other words, even in death, Armani's influence remains a living force. His passing didn't just mark the end of a career, it closed a chapter in fashion history. Armani blurred the lines between masculine and feminine, luxury and simplicity, personal sacrifice and public triumph. He created more than clothes. He created a cultural identity, one that will linger on every red carpet, every wedding gown, and every power suit for generations to come. Looking back, Armani himself summed it up best. "In reality, I have no regrets. I did what I wanted." Few can say the same, and fewer still can leave behind an empire that continues to define what elegance means. The man may be gone, but Giorgio Armani's presence is everywhere, in the quiet confidence of a perfectly cut suit, in the understated glamour of a timeless gown, in the legacy of discipline that turned one man's vision into a global phenomenon. His story is finished, but his influence will never fade.